Welcome to Spinning Back Clique here on MMA Junkie, where we take a weekly spin through the biggest topics in MMA. My name is John Morgan. Gorgeous George and Goze are on the clock this week, so let's just get straight into it. UFC on ESPN Plus 21. That was the biggest fight card of the weekend, no question about it. Took place over in Russia. Greg Hardy, your surprise co-main event. He stepped in on short notice to fill in for Junior Dos Santos and hurt his hand early against Alexander Volkov. Ended up fighting a full 15 minutes. No big knockout. The haters didn't get to hate. The supporters didn't really get love. It was kind of a ho-hum decision. Goes, what do you take out of that? What did we learn about Greg Hardy?
I think what we learned was, despite his troubled past, outside of the cage, inside the cage, the guy's taking things very seriously. He took a fight that a lot of fighters wouldn't have taken. He took it on short notice, and he traveled across the globe kind of to just prove a point. I don't know if he was trying to make the point to everyone else or himself, but I think it kind of worked. He hung in there with a very tough cat. He still got work to do, but you got to applaud his effort.
Yeah, no question. George, what'd you think about it? I mean, it was clear that Alexander Volkov, and I think he admitted afterwards, he was fighting kind of safe. He knew he was in there with a dangerous guy, and this was a late change. So, I don't know, did you take much out of this performance from Greg Hardy, or is there still something to learn?
I think he just needs – he gained a lot of valuable experience that night, 15 minutes against Volkov, but I think he saw that there's levels to this. And you could just tell once the right hand went, he was a little shook. I mean, right away, he doesn't have many tools in his toolbox. He took away one of his biggest tools, and you could just see he was a little bit struggling out there. Like there wasn't like a plan B or anything like that, And Volkov, I mean, he fought a nice conservative fight. He was always in control, and it was just a matter of not getting caught. And, with him being up there and this being a risky fight, one of those where there's not much to gain but a ton to lose, I think Volkov played it right. But I don't blame Greg Hardy for stepping up.
Yeah. Goes, I mean, I've seen a lot of people say that, look, we've seen development over Greg Hardy. I think I'd probably support that. I mean, the guy is still very, very early in his career. But, I mean, did you take anything long-term out of this? I do think we're seeing development, but is it going to continue to develop? I mean, do we think that this is a guy that is going to be a contender at some point? Or is he always going to be this kind of, I hate to say sideshow, but kind of what it is, right? I mean, is he going to be a special attraction, or is he going to be somebody that matters at heavyweight?
I think anytime you look at a fighter who was in another sport that reached the highest levels there, you can't doubt a person like that. He's made leaps and bounds in what's it been, like 2-3 years ago? He threw his first punch.
Right.
Look what he's doing now. So, yeah, over a short period of time, he's shown that he can improve tremendously. I don't know if he's going to be fighting for titles, but I think he can give a lot of people a run for their money.
George, what about you? I mean, the guy comes with baggage, right? There's no question about his past. Are people ever going to come around on him? Are they ever going to, say, I support this guy and I believe in him, or is it always going to be a problem?
It's always going to be a problem. But what I can tell you is that a lot of these fighters that come with baggage, like you said, or they have controversies behind them, they distance themselves from it as they, gain more fights. So it'll be less and less stories, unless he were to, something were to flare up again, but I doubt that'll happen. It seems like he really has moved on from that, so I don't think it'll get any worse. But there's a lot of people that just flat out won't forget.
Yeah, I kind of wish the injury wouldn't happen. It was clear there was something wrong with the right hand, and because of that, I felt like a lot of question marks. But I don't see how you don't at least respect the guy for stepping up on short notice and taking on a real contender like Alexander Volkov. Of course, man, the domestic violence history is there. I understand if people aren't going to like him because of that, but as a fighter, I think he did take at least one step forward this weekend.
Agreed.
So Beat Magomed was in the main event. Very, very talented featherweight, no question about it. Started strong, maybe tailed off a little bit late, but immediately afterwards he says, listen, I want a title shot. George, tell me, I mean, does the guy have the resume right now for the title shot, or is there more to go?
Yes and no. He's 18-1 overall, and he's looked good along the way, except this wasn't the performance that elevates you to a title shot. It's almost like he backed into it a little bit, you know what I mean? He was up 2-1, it looks like, and Kattar closed strong. I'm not going to play the whole if it was 5 rounds. It wasn't, all right? I agree. If it was, maybe it turns out different, but it wasn't, and we don't know. But it's just, it wasn't that fight that, puts you there, you know what I mean? Now, that said, on the rankings report later on, when we do that, there will be some movement there, and we're not left with many options for the guy. It's just that I think the UFC has 2 things going. One, they have an incumbent in Max Holloway, where if he were to lose, and I'm not saying he is, but if he were, he might have a shot at that whole immediate rematch type thing, with Volkanovski. Sure. It could be a classic. I don't know. So that might buy the UFC some time for Zabit to get maybe one more performance and get a good performance, something that launches him there. Maybe like the winner of the Korean Zombie and Brian Ortega that's coming up.
Yeah, 'cause I don't like the argument. I have seen people say, "Oh man, if it had been 5 rounds, it was never scheduled as 5 rounds." So even when it was supposed to happen in Boston, it was supposed to be 3. So because of that, you can't. I don't think. I mean, I do have questions about Zabit's cardio. I'm not going to lie, but I don't think you can hold that over his head here because it wasn't like it was originally 5 and then changed to 3. But Goze, what about your thoughts? I mean, as you said, as George said, I mean, I don't know that he's necessarily knocked off all the contenders along the way, but I don't know if there's a lot of other names in the division right now for him not to be there. So is this guy ready for a title shot?
I look at it this way. Zabit has good wins. He doesn't have great wins. And I think if you're ever going to talk about somebody fighting for a title, they need great wins. As far as the 5 rounds go, I see where people are coming from. If you're going to fight for a title, I'd like you to at least have a couple 5 rounds under your belt. Just because you're good at 5Ks doesn't mean you're great at a marathon, right? So we want to see what he's like, because a guy with an output like Zabit, over 5 rounds, can you do that over 5 rounds? I mean, you're asking for 2 more rounds. That's a lot to ask from a fighter. So I'd like to see him maybe like in a co-main on a big pay-per-view, get that American audience more familiar with him. Yair Rodriguez is that name that we hear over and over. You gave us that, and then you took it away from us. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, that would make some sense. What about Yair Rodriguez as a 5-round fight, a main event maybe, whether it be in Russia or Mexico, one of the two? I mean, would that be enough, you think, at that point? Do you say, okay, now he's ready, he's the number 1 contender?
I love it. Yeah, they were supposed to fight once, so there's a little bit of history there. But more than anything, I guess if you think about like Ortega, I'll bring his name up again. Remember when he beat Edgar? I mean, he put him off his feet. Like, that's the type of performance that we're looking for. Or even if you want to go further back, McGregor, when he came back and finished Mendez. The stage wasn't big. No disrespect to Moscow. They came out strong. The fans were amazing. But it was an ESPN Plus card, so I like Goze's idea. Put him on the main card of a pay-per-view and let him have that type of performance.
I like it. That's fair. You're right. It wasn't that wow performance, and it wasn't necessarily the big card like a Las Vegas pay-per-view. So, yeah, as much as I hate to say it, maybe he needs one more performance before he's there. The guy's got to be talented, though. I think he will be a future champion. All right, Nate Diaz. He is back in the news again, even though he's not fighting, and this time he's kind of walking it back a little bit. Originally, he said, peace out, fight game. But since then, he's told ESPN he's not retiring anytime soon, maybe not retiring ever. What do you guys make of Nate Diaz and what's going on? I mean, when are we going to see this guy fight? Are we going to see him fight? How do you get through all this cryptic nature of Nate Diaz, the guy that he is?
I think it's par for the course when it comes to the Diaz brothers. I mean, that's just kind of how they roll. They say these type of things. We all fall for it. The guy's going to be back, but he's in a unique situation where he doesn't necessarily have to fight often to keep streaks alive, to fight for belts or anything like that. He doesn't have to do that because he's one of those type of guys that has these kind of like open-ended type situations with Conor McGregor. At any point, let's run that third one. We're all about it. We're all going to tune in.
Yep.
And now even Jorge Masvidal gave him a little bit of an out, like saying, we can run this back. So he's got 2 of these fights where if he wants to take time off and just whenever he feels like coming back, he can reheat that, and we're all going to eat it.
It's so weird, right, George? Because to me, honestly, this is one of the most frustrating things about Nate Diaz. That's why I have a hard time getting fully on the bandwagon sometimes, because I don't know that we can talk about what's next for him, and we can get excited about big fights because you never know if his heart's into it or it's not into it. But it seems to work for him. I mean, he's clearly one of the biggest stars in the sport. So what do you make of this peace out fight game versus, now I guess I'm back and I'll fight tonight if you want me to?
It's comical to me, man. That's how I get that's how the Diaz brothers roll, but I just don't see the purpose of the move, honestly. He's a guy that grew up in the streets, him and his brother, and I know they roll to the beat of their own drum, but look, man, they're like 15 years in, closer to maybe even 20. So, I mean, it's time to really act like a professional a little bit, You can still be a G, you can still be a gangster, middle fingers, all that, but when it comes to retiring and then 2 days later walking it back and acting like, what were you thinking, believe in me. I mean, you said it, Nate. You know what I mean? I don't know. He's got the sport, by a vice grip, and he has some big fights that are waiting for him. So why not just finish strong? Go out there and do what you do best. Fight, Again, don't stop being Nate Diaz, but all that other stuff, and that goes for McGregor and all those other guys that take the social media and say one thing and walk it back. Stop it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When he said the peace out fight game, I didn't actually take it as retirement. I mean, I felt like it was just going to be another kind of lengthy little time off or whatever, a negotiation tactic. And I mean, which is smart. As you said, he's got power in the sport, man. The stardom is definitely there. So I never really took it as a full retirement. So I guess I'm not shocked by this. But Goze, what do you think? I mean, if you had to make a fight, when you named a couple of names there, you named, Conor McGregor, you named Jorge Masvidal. I'm sure there's other big fights as well. What would you like to see? And when do you think we'll see? I mean, will we get him back in 2020?
I don't think we will. I think he's going to take a little bit of time off. For one, just the eye injury alone, it's going to take a while for that to recover. Last time he took time off, it still wasn't enough. The eye has to recover. When you do bring him back, there's so many people that he could fight, but he's got to win. You can't be a bad MFer and not win. So you got to win some fights too.
No question about it. Listen, I hope we get him back in 2020. I think we will. I'll be honest.
We will.
The Conor McGregor trilogy is the one that I definitely want to see. And I think it makes sense for Conor as well because I don't think there's a lot of matchups that he wants to take on in that division either. So for me, I think the trilogy fight between those two sometime in 2020 makes sense. I don't think January does, unfortunately, but maybe later.
International Fight Week.
International Fight Week. Big one. I like it. All right. Listen, Jon Jones, speaking of big fights, has made it clear that he thinks Dominick Reyes is the next #1 contender at 205 pounds. Probably makes sense since that's what Dana White has said too. I think that we're already kind of angling in that direction, so I guess it's there. But what do you think? Is that the right decision? I know Corey Anderson's not going to think it's the right decision, but is that the right decision? And how dangerous really is Dominick Reyes?
If Corey Anderson was undefeated overall and undefeated in the UFC, he would be into it as well, right? And he'd be disgusted if somebody else got the shot. Corey Anderson's on a roll. There's no way around it. And he had an exclamation mark type of win the other day. But the other kid's been he had an exclamation point win as well versus Chris Weidman a few weeks before that. So that with the overall record, I mean, he's just it. He hasn't been tripped up. So his ascent has had no obstacles. He's just been ascending. There's been like, there hasn't been one of those where he takes 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I mean, it's clear cut. You know what I mean? Now, is he the dance partner Jon Jones wanted? No, Jon Jones is used to Cormier and he's used to, shoes being thrown at the MGM lobby and bad words, whatever. He's not going to get it here, but still, that's the fight to make.
Yeah, it's wild because, I think Jon Jones has just been a champion for so long that now you got this next generation of contenders. And it is kind of weird. You don't necessarily get excited because it's not the biggest name. It's not the guy with the established history, but those are the guys that are making their way ups right now. So, Goze, what do you think? When you look at this on paper, of course, Jon Jones is dominant, right? #1 pound for pound. But how dangerous is Dominick Reyes? Could this be a problem for Jon Jones?
Honestly, I don't think it can be. We're looking at 2 guys. I think they would be decent fights, but we've kind of seen this before. We've seen these type of fighters. Jon hasn't had too much problems with it. I think what we need to get away from is believing that Jon Jones is the guy that's deciding who these matchups are going to be. It's definitely the UFC. Can I throw a little conspiracy theory out there,
Absolutely.
though? What if he knows that the UFC doesn't want that? So really, he said Dominick Reyes thinking they're going to say, oh, yeah, we call the shots. You're getting Corey Anderson. What if he did that?
That's some complex level manipulation there. I don't know about that.
I don't know.
Well, what do you think? George, I hear people say all the time, Jon Jones, man, he needs to go up to heavyweight because there's just no challenges left. I'm not a fan of that, to be honest. I think if you're dominant in a division, you should just be dominant in that division. There's something to those lengthy streaks, So for you, I guess, as a fan, as a journalist, as a host, do you want to see the guy continue to knock off these guys at 205, or do you feel like he should go to heavyweight?
I'm good with either scenario, but I'd like to see him touch heavyweight at some point because he is not only just a champion with title defenses, he's one of those guys that's involved in GOAT talk. And when you're involved in GOAT talk, guess what? You're going up against other guys that have had a dabbling or two, in another weight class. Cormier, GSP, even Demetrius Johnson. A lot of you don't know, WEC didn't have the flyweight division. He actually has a pretty good record. I think he only lost to Dominic Cruz in a title fight. So I think at some point to chase that legacy, he's got to do that. But I will politely disagree with Goze. Look, he won a split decision win against Thiago Santos, so it's not like he's been unbreakable like he was in the past. I think Reyes has a shot, man. When you're talking about 205ers that rehydrate to about 225 with 4-ounce gloves, man, it's fair game. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I think Dominick Reyes is the right pick. I'm glad that he's getting the title shot next, it seems like. I do think he is going to be a problem. I think he's got a shot. We'll see. Hopefully Jon Jones takes him serious, and hopefully Corey Anderson is after that because that man's going to go crazy if not. All right, Sergio Pettis. He's in Bellator now. It's crazy, right? The guy is left. That's a high-profile free agent. He named some reasons along the way. Obviously money is part of it, but, the uncertainty of the flyweight division is one as well. So, Goze, what do you think about just the idea of Pettis moving over to Bellator, and are we going to see more of this from big-name free agents?
I think we will. I kind of like the idea of him going over there. I don't know if I like it so much for the promotion. It just depends on how much they paid and what they had to give up to do it. But Sergio, for the longest time, we've talked about, having to live under the brightness of his brother. George, you know what that's like. But, weren't we saying that about Nick and Nate Diaz not too long ago? And now look at Nate Diaz's shine. So who knows? Maybe a move like this is something that will benefit this kid, and he can become the star that he could be. You know, we never know. He's a tough fighter. He's a tough out. How often is he going to fight? I don't know.
What do you think about George? Because Sergio is such an interesting character. I feel like motivation at times or focus. I don't know. Like he's had this potential, and the expectations have definitely been high all along the way. But do you like this move for him in terms of him fulfilling like who he is as an athlete, or do you worry about what it leaves in terms of what he wants to accomplish?
It reminds me a little bit of what Dan Henderson did when he came over to Pride, and then he had a couple fights in the UFC that didn't go his way. Quinton, Anderson, a couple others that did go his way, and then he went to Strikeforce and kind of like reinvented himself and still came back to the UFC and had one more shot to be a UFC champion. So I think Pettis has youth on his side, so he can go over there, maybe get paid, which is 99% of it, honestly. He probably is getting a good paycheck. Go down there, see if he can be a champion, and always return to the UFC. If he was a little bit older, I'd say that probably wasn't a wise move. I think he had something pretty special there. They were the Pettis brothers. He started with the UFC, could end with the UFC. Another thing he said was, Bellator's deep. They're not deep. They do have some bantamweights. They have Bandejas and Archuleta and Caldwell, you know what I mean, and Dantas. But two of those four I just named, for example, have recently fought as featherweights. So I don't know if he wants to get caught in that position where he's there. And look at a guy like Michael Chandler. Sometimes he's like, who do I fight? He's doing a rematch versus Benson Henderson. You know what I mean? And he's done that with a few different opponents. So hopefully he thought that one through, because if he wants fresh opponents, they take their time to stock up the shelves over there at Bellator.
Yeah.
In the UFC, bantamweight's popping.
Goze, what do you think? Do you think we're going to see? I mean, is this? We're seeing more high-profile free agents all the time, right? I mean, do you think we're going to see more of this? I think, King Mo, before his retirement the other day, said, listen, I think fighters need to be aware it's not just the UFC. You should think about where you can get the biggest paycheck. Do you think we're starting to see that mindset switch a little bit, where maybe fighters are realizing it's not UFC or bust, there's other opportunities, and maybe we'll see more movement like this?
I think that's so important what you said. It really comes down to mindset. What fighters are thinking? Are they trying to make a lot of money? Are they thinking about legacy? I don't know. I mean, they're getting offers from One Championship, PFL. It really depends on the mindset, but I think most of us are driven by money, so I would imagine that a lot of this is going to happen.
I'll stand by it. I think if you want to be number one in the world, if it's important to you to say, I am number one in my weight class, I still think you have to be in the UFC, just because you said the depth, the number of repeated matchups, you're going to get the chance to prove it over and over. But if you want to get paid, if you want to set up your family for the future, there are other options on the table, and I think fighters should be open to that, because at the end of the day, this is about the money. It's prize fighting. So listen, fun as always. There's always going to be news in MMA. We will definitely talk about it next week on Spinning Back Clique.